In a quiet town on the edge of nowhere, a sleek black Porsche broke down near an old gas station. The driver, a well-dressed woman in her late 30s, sighed in frustration. Her name was Evelyn Hart, a billionaire tech mogul with eyes full of secrets and sorrow. She wasn't just traveling, she was searching. For years, she had been looking for her daughter who went missing at the age of 3. As Evelyn stepped out of the car, a small voice caught her attention. "You need help with that?" asked a little girl with grease on her cheeks and a toolbox in hand. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, wearing worn-out overalls and a cap too big for her head. Evelyn blinked. "You fix cars?" "My uncle taught me. I help around here." Evelyn hesitated, but something in the girl's eyes, those hazel eyes, felt familiar. In less than 15 minutes, the girl had the engine running. Evelyn stood in awe, then crouched beside her. "What's your name?" "Lila." Evelyn's heart skipped. That was the name she had given her daughter before she vanished during a family trip to a coastal town 10 years ago. "Lila," Evelyn whispered, "do you know where your parents are?" "I live with my aunt. Mama disappeared when I was little. That's all I know." Evelyn's hands trembled. She pulled out a silver locket from her purse and opened it, showing a picture of a baby girl. Lila stared. "That's me," she said softly. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. DNA would later confirm what both hearts already knew. Lila was her daughter. That broken Porsche wasn't an accident. It was fate bringing a mother and daughter back together, through a little girl, a wrench, and a love that never disappeared. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She sat in a small motel near the town, staring at the photograph of her daughter, now matched with the face of the little girl who fixed her car. In the morning, she returned to the gas station. Lila was there again, changing a tire. Evelyn approached slowly, her voice gentle. "Lila, can we talk?" The girl wiped her hands. "Sure." They sat on a bench near the garage. Evelyn asked carefully, "You said you live with your aunt. Can I meet her?" Lila nodded. "She's nice. But she doesn't like strangers much." Evelyn followed Lila to a small wooden house behind the hills. A woman in her 40s opened the door. She looked shocked when she saw Evelyn. "You're Evelyn Hart?" she said coldly. "You know who I am?" Evelyn asked, her voice tight. The woman looked away. "Yes. And I know who Lila is." Evelyn's heart pounded. "You knew she was my daughter?" The woman sighed. "I didn't plan for it to be like this. 10 years ago, your daughter was taken during that storm. My brother, he was a drifter. He found her crying on the beach. He thought no one wanted her. He stole her," Evelyn said, her voice trembling with anger and grief. "He died a year later," the woman whispered. "I've raised her since she was 3. I gave her everything I could. But I always knew, one day you'd come." Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes. "I've searched for her every day. Every year, I hoped she was alive." Lila stood between them, confused. "What's going on?" The woman knelt down beside her. "Lila, your real mother is here. She never stopped looking for you." Lila turned to Evelyn. "Are you really my mom?" Evelyn knelt, opening the locket again. "Yes, sweetheart. I've missed you every second of my life." Lila hesitated, then wrapped her arms around Evelyn. They held each other tightly, mother and daughter, reunited not by chance, but by something deeper, fate and love. But the story didn't end there. Evelyn didn't want to rip Lila from the only life she had known. Instead, she offered something else. "Come with me," Evelyn said to the aunt. "All of you. Let's raise her together. She deserves the truth and a future that honors everyone who loved her." And so they did. A billionaire, a mechanic girl, and the woman who had unknowingly raised another's child, bound by secrets, now tied by forgiveness. Because sometimes, it takes a broken Porsche to fix what was lost. A week later, Evelyn returned to the city, but this time, she didn't go alone. Lila sat in the back seat of the repaired Porsche, her face pressed against the window as the skyline of New York came into view. Everything was bigger, faster, louder. Nothing like the quiet town she grew up in. Evelyn looked at her from the front mirror. "You okay, sweetheart?" Lila nodded, but her eyes were wide. I've never seen buildings that touch the clouds. Evelyn smiled. Well, now you live in one. Her penthouse was everything a child could dream of: floor-to-ceiling glass, a room full of books, another filled with toys, and even a telescope to watch the stars. But Lila didn't run to the toys. Instead, she opened a drawer in the kitchen and pulled out a wrench. "Do you have anything broken?" she asked sincerely. Evelyn chuckled. "Not yet. But if something ever is, you're my first call." Days passed, then weeks. Lila began attending private school. She had tutors, piano lessons, even fencing, but she always missed the smell of gasoline and the sound of tools clinking in her uncle's garage. One day, Evelyn took her to a large empty warehouse. "What is this?" Lila asked. "A gift," Evelyn said. "For you and your dreams." Inside was a fully equipped auto garage, designed just for Lila. On the wall hung a sign. "Lila's garage, no problem too big or small." Tears welled in the girl's eyes. "I thought rich people didn't fix cars." Evelyn knelt beside her. "Being rich means nothing if you can't be yourself. And I want you to always be you, Lila." But not everything was perfect. One night, Lila sat alone on the balcony. "Mom," she asked softly, "do you ever wonder if I would have grown up different if I stayed with you?" Evelyn sat beside her. "I used to ask myself that every day. But I realized, the girl I found, the one who fixed my Porsche, is exactly who you were always meant to be." Lila leaned her head on Evelyn's shoulder. "I don't remember much from when I was little," Lila said. "But I think my heart remembered you." Evelyn kissed her forehead, eyes glistening. "And my heart never stopped waiting for you," she whispered. For a while, everything felt perfect. Lila had begun to adjust to her new life. She split her time between school, her private garage, and quality time with Evelyn. Reporters tried to get close, stories filled the internet. Billionaire finds daughter after 10 years. But Evelyn made sure Lila was protected from the chaos. One evening, while sorting old boxes that Evelyn had kept from the past, Lila found something odd: a worn-out stuffed bunny, a faded photo of a beach, and a police folder labeled "Case. Lila Hart, missing person." Her hands froze. "This was me," she whispered. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. Her thoughts raced. She had questions. The next morning she finally asked, "Mom, who took me?" Evelyn hesitated. She had waited for this moment, but hoped it would come later, when Lila was older. "It was someone who thought they were helping," Evelyn said carefully. "But it wasn't their choice to make." "Was he a bad man?" "He made a terrible mistake," Evelyn replied. "But he's gone now." Lila nodded, then looked away. "So, why did nobody find me earlier?" Evelyn sighed. "I searched everywhere, baby. Every town, every road. But the world is big, and sometimes, love takes time to find its way back." Later that week, a letter arrived. It was addressed to Evelyn, no return name. Inside was a single sentence. "You took her, but the truth is deeper than you know." Evelyn's face went pale. She kept the letter hidden. Days passed, but Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching. Someone who didn't want the past buried. Then one night, Lila's garage alarm was triggered. When Evelyn and security arrived, they found a photo taped to the wall. It showed a man, the drifter who had taken Lila, but younger, and beside him was Evelyn's sister, who had died years ago. Evelyn dropped the photo. Her heart pounded. "My sister?" she whispered. Lila stood behind her, confused. "Who is that?" Evelyn didn't answer right away. Her mind spun. Had her sister known something? Was Lila's disappearance connected to family betrayal? One thing was clear: the truth about the past wasn't fully told yet. And though a little girl had fixed a broken Porsche, now, together, they'd have to fix the pieces of a mystery far more complicated than they imagined. Evelyn stared at the photo for a long time. Her sister, Marianne, had died in a car crash almost 8 years ago, or so she thought. But there she was in the photo, arm in arm with the drifter who had raised Lila. Lila looked up at her mother. "Is that your sister?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "Yes. But she was supposed to be gone. I buried her." The photo was dated only 6 years ago, which meant she hadn't died when they said she did. That night, Evelyn made a phone call to an old private investigator she once trusted. "I need you to reopen a file," she said. "Marianne Hart. Find out everything, where she's been and who she's been with." 3 days passed. The investigator called back with chilling news. "Evelyn, your sister faked her death." "What?" "She changed her identity and was living under a different name just 2 towns away from where Lila was found. She had ties to a child trafficking group, but went off the grid before authorities could question her." Evelyn's heart shattered. "Are you saying my own sister had something to do with Lila's disappearance?" "We don't have proof," the investigator said. "But the man who took Lila? He wasn't a random drifter. His real name was Mark Holland. He was in a relationship with your sister for 2 years before Lila vanished." Everything Evelyn believed twisted and turned inside her. The betrayal ran deeper than she imagined. But Evelyn wasn't the only one sensing something. Lila began having fragmented dreams, foggy memories of a woman singing to her, hiding her under a blanket, whispering not to make a sound. "Her voice sounded like yours," Lila said to Evelyn one morning, "but it wasn't." Evelyn hugged her tight. It was her. It was Marianne. Later that week, Lila asked, "Mom, do I have any cousins?" Evelyn froze. It was a question she had never thought she'd have to answer. "Yes. What?" "A boy named Noah. He would be around your age now. Marianne had him when she was young. He disappeared too, right after her." Lila's eyes widened. What if he's still out there? And with that, the search that had once been for a missing daughter turned into a search for a hidden nephew and the twisted truth behind Evelyn's own bloodline. The next morning, Evelyn and Lila sat in the private study, going through every photo, letter, and document connected to Marianne. Lila pointed to an old postcard sent from a town in rural Pennsylvania. On the back, a message was scribbled in rushed handwriting. "Keep him safe. No one can know who he really is." Lila whispered, "You think this is about Noah?" Evelyn nodded. She was protecting someone, maybe even hiding from the same people who helped take you. They traveled to the small town the next day. It was quiet, surrounded by forest and fog. The kind of place no one looked twice at. They started asking around. Most people had never heard of Marianne or Mark Holland. But at a rundown diner, an elderly waitress remembered something. "There was a woman and a boy," she said. "Stayed in the old cabin for about a year. She always looked over her shoulder. The boy barely spoke. Called her, even though she called him, my son, when she didn't think anyone was listening." "Where are they now?" Evelyn asked. "Gone. Disappeared 2 years ago. No goodbyes." They followed the trail to the cabin. "Does it empty?" But under the floorboards, Lila found something, a journal wrapped in an old cloth. Evelyn opened it. The first page read, "If you're reading this, I might already be gone. I tried to make things right, but I can't undo the damage. Noah is innocent. I gave him a new name. A new life. I just hope he's never found by the ones who tried to use him like they used me." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. She wasn't running from me. She was running from them. "And protecting Noah," Lila added. "Like how you tried to protect me." They read more. The journal described a safe house, a remote orphanage up north, where she had left Noah under the name Eli. It wasn't a real orphanage, but a place run by people who took in children like him, the hidden ones. Evelyn didn't wait. She and Lila took the first flight north. When they arrived at the location, an older man greeted them. His eyes were tired but kind. "We've been expecting you," he said. "Noah left 2 weeks ago. Said he felt like someone was looking for him." Lila's heart dropped. "Do you know where he went?" The man handed her a note. On it was written, "If she really is my aunt, she'll find me. I'll be where the stars feel close." Evelyn looked to the sky. "The observatory," she whispered. "The one Marianne took us to when we were kids." They weren't done searching. But for the first time, Evelyn and Lila weren't just looking for answers. They were looking to bring another lost soul home. And once again, the road that began with a broken Porsche was leading them closer to healing a family torn apart by shadows. The mountain road twisted through the fog as Evelyn's Porsche climbed higher, the engine humming steady beneath them. Beside her, Lila clutched the note tight in her hand. "The observatory," she whispered. "Do you really think he's there?" Evelyn nodded. "It's where Marianne and I used to go to feel small and safe. If Noah inherited even a piece of her, that's where he'd go." By nightfall, they reached the old observatory. It stood like a forgotten giant beneath a blanket of stars, quiet and still. The place had been closed to the public for years, yet the gate was slightly open. They stepped inside, guided only by moonlight. Then, footsteps. "Hello," Evelyn called out. Silence. Lila noticed movement near the telescope dome. A figure, skinny, cautious, emerged from the shadows. A teenage boy, around her age. He had sharp features, dark curls, and eyes that flickered with suspicion. "Who are you?" the boy asked, gripping a flashlight like a weapon. "My name is Evelyn Hart," she said softly. "And this is Lila." He stared at Lila. Something in his expression cracked. "You're her," he whispered. "You're the girl from the photo. The one Marianne kept hidden in her book." Lila took a step closer. "And you're Noah?" The flashlight lowered. He looked at Evelyn. "Are you really her sister?" "I am. I didn't know the truth. Not until recently." Noah looked down. "She told me never to trust anyone. She said if someone found me, it could mean danger." "She was right to protect you," Evelyn said. "But it's over now. You don't have to hide anymore." Tears welled up in his eyes, but he turned away. "Why should I believe you?" Lila stepped forward, holding out her hand. "Because I was hidden too. And someone found me. Someone who never gave up." A long silence fell. Noah took her hand. And just like that, the family that had been scattered across time, secrets, and pain began to stitch itself back together. That night, the three of them lay under the open dome, staring up at the stars. "I used to think no one was coming for me," Noah said quietly. "I used to think I'd never be found," Lila added. Evelyn wiped her eyes and pulled them close. "But we found each other. And no one is ever going to take you away again." Above them, the sky shimmered, silent, endless, full of hope. After leaving the observatory, Evelyn brought Lila and Noah back to the city. Now with both children reunited beside her, Evelyn prepared for what would come next. A storm of attention, legal questions, and dangerous eyes from the past. She hired the best legal team in the country. They filed guardianship papers for Noah and reopened the closed investigation into Marianne's disappearance. Evelyn didn't want revenge, she wanted truth and protection for the children who had been caught in someone else's war. But the media didn't wait for the courts. Headlines exploded. Billionaire mother reunites with lost daughter and finds sister's hidden son. Secrets of the Hart family. What really happened to Marianne Hart? Was the disappearance an inside job? Evelyn shielded Lila and Noah as best she could, but whispers leaked into the streets. Noah struggled the most. At school, he overheard students call him the orphan boy or the stolen kid. He tried to act like it didn't bother him, but Evelyn could see it in his eyes. One night, she found him in the garage, the same place Lila loved to escape to. He was staring at the Porsche. "This car," he said quietly. "This is where it all started, right?" Evelyn nodded. "Lila fixed it. And I found her." "Then maybe I should break it," he muttered. "So you'll find me too." Evelyn stepped forward, her heart aching. "Noah, I already have you. You're not in anyone's shadow. You're not an accident. You're part of this family. And I will fight for you, every day, until your name is yours again." He looked up at her, eyes wide. "You mean that?" "I swear it." And she did. In court, Evelyn testified. She provided DNA. Witnesses came forward. Marianne's journal was submitted as evidence. Even the man who had run the mountain orphanage testified, confirming that Noah had been left under a false name to protect him. After months of hearings, the judge finally spoke the words they had been praying for. This court recognizes Evelyn Hart as the legal guardian of both Lila Hart and Noah Hart. From this moment forward, Both children are under her full care and protection. Noah cried silently. Lila squeezed his hand. Outside the courtroom, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and microphones pointed like weapons. But Evelyn stood between them and the world, taller than she'd ever been. She leaned down and whispered to her children. They can say whatever they want, but we know who we are. You were both taken from me, but I found you. Not through money, not through power, but through love and a little girl who could fix anything, even a Porsche. And so, they walked out, not as headlines but as a family rebuilt. One wrench, one car, one miracle at a time. Months passed. Evelyn, Lila, and Noah began settling into a rhythm that almost felt like peace. Lila continued her schooling and spent afternoons restoring old cars in her private garage. Noah, once guarded and withdrawn, slowly opened up. He started drawing again, mostly stars, maps, and dreams. Evelyn couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in a decade, her world felt whole. But peace, they would soon learn, was never built without a cost. One evening, while going through old boxes from Marianne's cabin, Noah found an unmarked envelope hidden behind the lining of a suitcase. Inside was a torn photograph, a group of men standing beside luxury cars, and in the corner, a woman with her back turned. It wasn't just any woman. It was Marianne. And beside her, Evelyn's face went cold. That man, she said, pointing. He was at one of my company's charity events. Years ago. Lila narrowed her eyes. What kind of event? Private donors, Evelyn murmured. Some I never even met in person. The back of the photograph had one word scribbled in ink. Redbird. Evelyn ran the name through her private network. Within hours, the answer came. Redbird wasn't a company. It was a code name for a private organization involved in underground child trading, masked under rescue programs. It was international, dangerous, and Marianne had once been part of it. She didn't just run from them, Evelyn said, her voice shaking. She escaped them, and she took Noah with her. Later that week, Evelyn received a call from a number that wasn't listed. She answered in silence. A deep voice spoke. You've taken what belonged to us. You should have let the past die with her. Then the line went dead. Security was tightened. Guards placed around the estate. The children weren't told everything, but they could sense the fear in Evelyn's eyes. That night, Noah came into her study. You're not going to let them take us, are you? Evelyn walked over and knelt before him. I once lost my daughter, she whispered, and I almost never found her. I will never lose either of you again. I don't care who they are. Noah nodded slowly. Then, for the first time, he hugged her tightly. You're the only real parent I've ever had. And just like that, Evelyn knew. Whatever Redbird was, whatever storm was coming, they would face it together. Because the girl who fixed a stranger's Porsche had unknowingly rebuilt a broken family. And now, that family was ready to fight for their future. The sun rose behind tall glass towers, but Evelyn Hart didn't see it as a new day. She saw it as a battlefield. She had fought for years to find Lila. Then she found Noah. Now she had to protect both, not from the past, but from the shadows that still moved through the world. Evelyn didn't sit still. She formed a private task force, a combination of retired intelligence agents, cybersecurity experts, and one old friend, Marcus Bell, a former military analyst who owed her a favor bigger than money. The name Redbird is real, Marcus confirmed, pulling up an encrypted file. It's a cover used by traffickers, smugglers, and even fake adoption rings. Marianne got involved when she was desperate. She probably thought she was helping people. But she wasn't, Evelyn said coldly. She was feeding children into a system. Until she turned against them, Marcus added. That's when she ran. And that's why they want Noah back. He knows faces. Maybe even secrets that were never supposed to survive. Evelyn's jaw clenched. We take them down. Meanwhile, Lila and Noah were changing. Lila's curiosity and skill with machines became more than a hobby. With Marcus' help, she began learning surveillance tech, helping trace data trails. Noah, too, became part of the operation. His drawings, what everyone thought were dreams, turned out to be memories, buildings, tattoos, and logos he had seen while living with Marianne. One sketch stood out, a man with a jagged scar across his neck. "That's the one who watched me when Marianne disappeared," Noah said. Using the image, Marcus tracked the man to a known location in Istanbul. Evelyn didn't hesitate. Within days, she flew there with Marcus, leaving Lila and Noah under maximum security back home. They found the man easily. He ran a fake orphanage under a new name. When he saw Evelyn, he smirked. "I was wondering when you'd come," he said. "You were part of Redbird," she stated. He laughed. "Still am. But you're too late. Once a child disappears into our system, they don't come back." Evelyn leaned forward. "She did. And now I'm coming for the rest." They left with more than they expected. A flash drive hidden in a drawer, containing data on other children, transactions, locations. It was only the beginning. When Evelyn returned, she held a press conference. Against the advice of lawyers, security, and publicists, she told the world everything. "I am Evelyn Hart," she said, voice steady. "I found my daughter after 10 years. I found my nephew in hiding. And I found the network that took them both. Its name is Redbird. I'm not hiding anymore. And I will bring them down." The world listened. Some believed. Some doubted. But none could ignore her. Because the little girl who once fixed a stranger's Porsche had lit a fire that couldn't be put out. After Evelyn's public declaration against Redbird, the world erupted. Some hailed her as a hero. Others warned her to back down. But Evelyn Hart had never been the type to flinch when things got dangerous. Back at the estate, Lila and Noah were no longer just the lost and found, they were now targets. Security tripled. Firewalls were reinforced. Every car in the garage was scanned for trackers. But one afternoon, Lila noticed something strange. Her favorite tool set had been moved. "Did someone use my wrench?" she asked the guard station nearby. "No one's entered the garage but you," he replied. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She stared at the moon through her window and whispered, "They're already here." The next morning, Evelyn received a package with no sender. Inside was a mechanical part from the Porsche Lila had first repaired, but it had been cut in half, and attached was a note. "Fix this." The message was clear. They were mocking her, threatening what began it all. Evelyn locked down the house completely. No exits. No entrances. The children were moved to a hidden floor beneath the estate. But even then, Lila felt something deeper. "We can't hide forever," she said to her mother. "You raised me to be strong. Let me help." "No," Evelyn said. "You're a child." Lila stood tall. "Not anymore." Later that week, the estate's private server was breached. 4:47 seconds, an external IP accessed files marked Operation Redbird, internal evidence. Lila was the one who caught it. Using the tools Marcus had trained her with, she traced the signal, and her eyes widened. "It's coming from inside the city," she told Evelyn. "They're not just watching us. They're planning something. And soon." Evelyn gathered her team. But before they could act, the estate's backup generator failed. The lights cut off. Panic spread. And in the darkness, someone entered. A silent intruder moved toward the safe room, bypassing security systems. But he didn't expect Lila to be waiting. She had rewired the access panel herself, changed the codes, and rigged a trap using nothing but garage parts, a taser, and an old motion sensor from her telescope system. The intruder dropped, unconscious. When the lights came back on, Evelyn stared in awe. "You built that?" she asked. Lila nodded. "You said I fixed your car. Now I fixed your house." And for the first time, Evelyn realized Lila wasn't just her daughter. She was the spark in a storm. A fighter born from fire and steel. The war with Redbird had truly begun. But now Evelyn wasn't fighting alone. She had her daughter. Her nephew. And something Redbird could never control. The failed break-in changed everything. Evelyn no longer questioned whether Redbird was coming. They were already inside her world. Waiting, watching, striking when she least expected it. So she changed the game. She brought the fight into the boardroom. As the CEO of Heart Dynamics, Evelyn had built an empire from innovation, trust, and intelligence. But now, her empire had cracks, and someone inside was feeding Redbird information. She assembled only her most trusted executives for a private emergency meeting. "This company is under internal threat," Evelyn announced. "I won't say who I suspect, but I know one of you is helping them." The room went quiet. One man, Gerald Stone, head of international affairs, shifted in his chair. Evelyn noticed. She said nothing. Instead, she set a silent plan into motion. Back at the estate, Lila and Noah were doing their own work. With help from Marcus, they used facial recognition software to analyze every major donor or board member connected to Evelyn's company over the past decade. Then, Noah's eyes widened. "Look at this," he said, pointing at the screen. There, in a photo from a gala 6 years ago, was Gerald Stone, standing beside the man with the scar. The one who ran the fake orphanage. The one Noah had drawn from memory. Evelyn returned home late that night, exhausted. Lila met her in the hallway, holding the printed photo. "We found your leak." Evelyn's jaw tightened as she looked at the image. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak. She just nodded once. "Prepare the trap," she said. "We end this quietly." 2 nights later, Evelyn invited Gerald Stone for a private dinner at her countryside estate. The conversation was smooth, calm. Red wine. Music playing in the background. Then Evelyn stood and handed him a folder. "Thought you'd want to see this." Gerald opened it. Inside, photos, financial statements, communication logs, all proving his connection to Redbird. His face paled. "You have no idea what you're doing," he growled. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing," Evelyn replied coolly. "I'm dismantling them. And you're going to help me." "You think I'd turn on them?" "You don't have a choice," she said, leaning closer. "Because we already leaked your name. Redbird thinks you flipped. If you don't cooperate, they'll come for you before I do." Silence. Then a slow, terrified exhale from Gerald. "What do you want?" he asked. "Everyone. Every name. Every hideout. Every transfer. You give me Redbird's real leaders, and maybe I'll let you live to watch them fall." That night, as Evelyn walked back into the security room where Lila and Noah were watching the live footage, she smiled for the first time in days. "It's working," she said. But Lila's eyes were locked on another screen. A blinking red light. "Mom," she said softly. "There's another signal. It's coming from inside the estate again. A different device." Evelyn's blood ran cold. "Another spy?" Noah shook his head. "Worse." He turned the screen to show a video file that had just been uploaded. It was footage of Marianne. Alive. Looking straight into the camera. "If you're seeing this, they found me. And if I'm gone, it means someone you trust is not who they say they are." The room went silent as Marianne's recorded voice echoed through the speakers. "If I'm gone, it means someone you trust is not who they say they are." Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the screen. Marianne looked older, tired, but her voice was clear, urgent. "I never meant to drag you into this, Evelyn. I wanted to fix what I helped break. Redbird isn't just a syndicate, it's a system. A web of power, money, and faces we all thought we could trust." She paused. "There's a name. Evelyn, you'll know it. It's someone close. Someone who always stayed quiet. If I didn't make it, it's because they stopped me." Then the screen cut to static. No coordinates. No ending. Just silence. Noah sat frozen, fists clenched. "She was trying to protect us until the end." Evelyn said nothing. She already knew who Marianne was referring to. Arthur Voss. Her family lawyer. Her father's old friend. A man who had worked with her for decades, quietly managing legal affairs, property transitions, and even the investigation into Lila's disappearance. He had always been present, and always too quiet. The next morning, Evelyn summoned Arthur to the estate. He arrived as usual, calm, collected, briefcase in hand. "I assume this is about the Redbird case," he said, taking a seat across from her in the study. Evelyn poured tea but didn't touch hers. "Tell me, Arthur, did you know Marianne was alive?" A flicker in his expression. barely noticeable. But Evelyn saw it. "I suspected," he said. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because the people she crossed would have killed you to get to her." Evelyn stood. "They still might." She pressed a button beneath the table. Security agents stepped in, surrounding him. But Arthur raised his hands calmly. "You think arresting me will stop them? I was protecting this family the only way I knew how." Lila and Noah entered the room. Arthur looked at them, his eyes softening. "You've both grown into something powerful," he said. "That's why they fear you now. Because if you expose the truth, Redbird falls." "Then help us finish what Marianne started," Lila said, stepping forward. Arthur exhaled. And then, he opened his briefcase. Inside was a black folder, one Evelyn had never seen before. It was labeled simply, Marianne Protocol. These are her last locations, encrypted communications, safehouse keys, and the names of every official tied to Redbird. Evelyn stared at him. "Why now?" "Because the children are ready," Arthur said, locking eyes with Lila and Noah. "And because you still have time to stop what's coming." Evelyn opened the folder. At the top was a name circled in red. Senator Aldrich Hayes, a politician with strong public ties to child rescue charities and a long-standing ally of Heart Dynamics. "Redbird is preparing to go public," Arthur warned. "Not as criminals, but as saviors. They're going to launch a global initiative claiming they recover missing children. It's a lie. And once they're legitimized, they'll be untouchable." Evelyn's voice turned sharp. "Not if we destroy them first." That night, in the quiet of the garage, Lila sat beside the very Porsche she once fixed. She turned to Noah. "We were lost pieces in someone else's game." Noah nodded. "But now we're the ones driving." Lila smiled faintly. And above them, just like before, the stars watched in silence, waiting for the next move. The dossier Arthur Voss handed over wasn't just evidence, it was a war map. Inside were names, secret accounts, encrypted files, and one final location, Geneva, Switzerland, the site of a global summit where Senator Aldrich Hayes was set to announce a massive child recovery initiative funded by international investors. Only Evelyn, Lila, and Noah knew the terrifying truth. It was a front for Redbird. If they didn't stop him there, Redbird wouldn't need to hide anymore. They would be legitimized, protected by governments and media. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She booked the flight. Marcus, her security chief, prepared the tactical team. Arthur, after being cleared by Evelyn's lawyers, made the calls to foreign intelligence allies. Lila and Noah prepared the digital evidence for public release, Marianne's files, Redbird's payment trails, and damning footage. Before they left, Evelyn stood with her children at the private airstrip. "This is bigger than all of us," she said. "But it started with you too. And it ends with us." Noah looked at the jet, then back at her. "Do you think Mom, Marianne, would be proud?" Evelyn smiled gently. "She already is." In Geneva, the summit opened with glamour and fanfare. Cameras flashed. World leaders mingled. And Senator Aldrich Hayes, smiling, charming, powerful, stepped onto the main stage. What no one knew was that 3 people in the audience held the key to everything. Lila, wearing a sleek disguise and earpiece, sat at the center aisle with a portable drive tucked under her jacket. Noah was positioned by the control room, with Arthur monitoring transmissions. Evelyn sat calmly near the front row, her eyes fixed on the man who had helped tear her family apart. As Hayes began his speech, Lila leaned into her mic. "I'm in position." "Play it," Evelyn replied. Lila plugged the drive into the main console and sent the live feed to every screen in the conference center, and then to global news outlets. At first, people were confused, then horrified. Footage played. Children locked in hidden compounds. Financial transactions between Redbird front companies and government officials. Marianne's final message. Noah's childhood drawings turned real. Evelyn's courtroom testimony. Gerald Stone's confession. Gasps filled the hall. Security moved toward the stage, toward Hayes. Hayes froze. "You don't know what you're doing," he shouted. "They're lying. This is manipulation." Evelyn stood. "No. This is justice. Seconds later, Interpol agents arrived. Hayes tried to run, but was surrounded. His arrest was broadcast live to millions across the globe. Redbird's public face had fallen. Back in the hotel that night, Evelyn sat on the balcony with Lila and Noah. "You did it," Lila whispered. Evelyn shook her head. "We did." Noah pulled out one final letter. "It was hidden in Marianne's folder," he said. Evelyn unfolded it. It was in Marianne's handwriting. "If you found this, it means my children are safe. I made terrible choices, but I tried to undo them. Evelyn raised them not with fear, but with fire. Let them change the world the way I never could." Tears slid down Evelyn's cheek. She looked at her children, once lost, now found. Once hidden, now heroes. And she knew. It had all started with a girl fixing a stranger's Porsche. But it had become something so much more. A family reborn. A world awakened. And a name, Lila Hart, that would never be forgotten again. It had been 1 year since Redbird fell. A year since Senator Hayes was arrested. Since Redbird's global cover had been exposed. Since Lila and Noah, two once-forgotten children, became symbols of resilience around the world. But even in peace, shadows lingered. The Hart estate had transformed. Not just into a home, but a refuge. Evelyn, now semi-retired from Hart Dynamics, founded the Marianne Foundation, a global organization dedicated to rescuing children from hidden trafficking networks and rebuilding shattered families. Noah, surprisingly, had taken to public speaking, giving quiet, powerful testimony at conferences and schools. And Lila? She was still in the garage. Only now, the cars were hers. And the girl who once fixed a stranger's Porsche now ran Lila Motors, a design lab focused on building vehicles for security, rescue, and protection. But on the anniversary of their victory, something happened. A letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. It was addressed to Lila Hart. She opened it carefully. Inside were 5 words in looping cursive. "You fixed what she broke." Beneath it was a small metal piece, a part from a 1965 Porsche 911, exactly like the one she had fixed all those years ago. Lila blinked. "That can't be." Evelyn walked in. Her face went pale when she saw the note. "That's my father's handwriting," she whispered. Lila turned to her, stunned. "Your father? He died decades ago. Before you were born." They sat in silence for a moment. Noah, who had just entered the room, asked quietly, "Then who sent it?" They didn't know. That night, Lila walked to the garage alone. She opened the drawer where she kept her first wrench. The one she used on that Porsche years ago. The one that led to everything. And she placed the letter next to it. Then she whispered into the silence. "I didn't just fix a car. I fixed a family. I fixed the truth." Outside, the wind stirred. Quiet. And though the shadows of Redbird had scattered, one final mystery remained. Who was still watching? The next morning, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that the letter had awakened something long dormant, a thread that connected more than just family secrets. She brought the letter and the Porsche part to Marcus, Evelyn's most trusted investigator. "This isn't just any part," he said, examining it closely under magnification. "This is from a rare prototype engine. Only 6 were ever built. One of them was registered under the name George A. Hart." "Evelyn's father," Lila whispered. "But that car vanished after he died," Marcus said, narrowing his eyes. "No one's seen it since." Back at the estate, Evelyn sat in her study, staring at an old black and white photo of her father standing proudly next to that very Porsche. "He was working on something secret," she finally said to Lila and Noah. "A project the government tried to erase after he died in a lab fire. But my mother always believed he didn't die in that explosion. She said, they took him." Lila's voice grew quiet. "Who's they?" "I never knew," Evelyn said. "But now I wonder if Redbird wasn't the beginning, just part of a larger machine." That night, Noah was sketching in silence when he froze mid-stroke. "What is it?" Lila asked. He held up his drawing. A man standing next to a vintage Porsche, watching from a cliff. "I saw him," Noah said. "In my dream." Same face as the one in Evelyn's old photos. He wasn't old, he looked like now. Lila and Evelyn stared at each other. George Hart would be over 80 by now, if he were still alive. They traced the rare prototype part serial number through a backdoor database Marcus had cracked years ago. The last recorded maintenance? 2 months ago. In Patagonia. More specifically, in a mountain region near the Argentine border, known for being a retreat for former scientists, spies, and exiled intelligence operatives. A place with no roads, but plenty of places to hide. Evelyn didn't want to believe it, but something deep inside her already knew. They boarded the plane 3 days later. Lila, Evelyn, Noah, Marcus, and a small team of trackers made their way through harsh terrain. It took 4 days. And then, they found it. Half covered in snow and moss was a rusted shelter, overgrown with vines. Parked beside it was a vintage silver Porsche 911 prototype, untouched by time. Lila ran her fingers along the fender. Same weld marks. Same dent on the rear. "This is the one," she whispered. They approached the cabin cautiously. Inside, the place was filled with notebooks, engineering drafts, and newspaper clippings about Redbird, Heart Dynamics, and Evelyn. No one had lived there recently, but someone had, and had watched them for years. Then they found it. A photograph taped to the window from the inside. It showed Lila, as a child, holding a wrench beside the Porsche she had fixed from 10 years ago. Evelyn's voice trembled. "He's been watching us all along." Outside, in the frozen silence, a figure stood far off on a ridge, barely visible. Older. Weathered. Silver. And in his hand, glinting beneath the sun, was another part of that first Porsche. The wind howled over the ridge. Evelyn stared through the falling snow at the distant figure, still as stone, clutching the gleaming Porsche part in his hand. "It's him," she whispered. "It has to be him." Marcus raised a scope. "We can intercept him in 10 minutes if we move now." But Evelyn didn't move. "He's watching," she said. "He's been watching for years. Maybe he wants us to follow." Lila stepped forward beside her. "Then let's not keep him waiting." They climbed carefully, Evelyn, Lila, Noah, and Marcus, through the frozen hillside, past rocks and frost-covered pine trees. The tracks in the snow grew fresher. He wasn't far. Then they reached a narrow plateau. And there he was, George Hart. Older, thinner, but unmistakably him. He turned slowly, eyes heavy with years of solitude and secrets. Evelyn stood frozen. "Dad." George blinked. "You were never supposed to find this place." Evelyn stepped forward, emotion swelling. "You're alive. All these years. You let us think you were dead." "I was," he said coldly. "Dead to the world I helped build. Dead to the machine that became Redbird." Lila watched closely. "You were part of it." George nodded slowly. "I designed their escape routes. The vehicles. The first phase of their transport system. I thought I was creating a better future. I didn't realize I was helping build a prison." "And so you ran," Evelyn said. "You abandoned us." "I stayed behind," George said, looking at Lila now. "Because I knew one day, someone would come who could finish what I started." He opened his hand. The Porsche part was a key, literally. He pointed behind them. "There's a bunker under the cabin," he said. "Inside is every record, every prototype, every flaw in Redbird's original design. But I was too much of a coward to expose it myself. I needed someone like her." He looked at Lila. "The girl who fixed what I broke." Lila stared down at the key in her palm. It was old, heavy, engraved with the heart insignia. Evelyn said nothing. Her eyes were wet, but her posture was steel. "I came here to find you," she said. "Not just for answers, but because I believed you deserved a chance to finish what you started." George stepped forward, and for the first time in 40 years, he embraced his daughter. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything." Later that night, they descended into the hidden bunker beneath the snow-covered cabin. Inside was a vault of secrets. Schematics for Redbird's mobile facilities. A hard drive labeled Project Kestrel. And a file marked The Ones Who Never Left. As Lila plugged in the hard drive, screens lit up. Footage. Coordinates. Noah stared at a blinking folder. Active nodes, 7 remaining. Redbird isn't fully gone, he whispered. They've just gone deeper. Evelyn stood behind them. Then we go deeper. Lila turned toward her. We don't just finish this, do we? No, Evelyn replied. We end it. The cold bunker beneath George Hart's mountain hideout became mission headquarters. On the central monitor blinked 7 red dots across the map, Redbird's remaining active nodes. These weren't just hideouts. They were functional operations, embedded in cities, corporations, even humanitarian organizations. Lila traced the glowing locations on the screen. 7 nodes. 7 lies still in motion. Noah scrolled through encrypted files, each one with its own director and resources. Marcus added grimly, if they go dark, they disappear forever. If we want to end Redbird, it has to be all of them, at once. Evelyn turned to her father. Do you know who runs them? George nodded. He typed a command, and 7 names appeared, most were aliases. But one caught Evelyn's eye. Catherine Vale. She froze. She was my mentor, Evelyn said, voice sharp. When I first took over Heart Dynamics, Catherine taught me everything about international development, networking, and diplomacy. And now, George said, she's protecting Redbird's last global pipeline. She's the gatekeeper to the legal fronts that shield their operations. She always said you needed to play the game to change the rules, Evelyn whispered. I never thought she meant this. The plan formed. Each node would be targeted by small coordinated teams. George would handle technical overrides. Marcus would deploy former agents from trusted circles. Noah, with his sharp eye for patterns and facial recognition, would track identities digitally. And Lila, for the first time, would lead a field mission. Evelyn hesitated at first. But Lila simply said, you told me I rebuilt this family. Now let me protect it. Their target, Node 3, Nairobi, Kenya. Hidden beneath an NGO facility that claimed to provide education to displaced children. But behind the classrooms, there were hidden doors. And behind those doors, silence. On the ground in Nairobi, Lila moved with precision, dressed like a technician. She carried no weapon, just a toolkit and a drive that George had given her. Noah fed her live updates from Geneva. Security shift in 5 minutes. Now's your window, he said into her earpiece. Lila slipped past 2 guards and reached a locked sublevel door. She unscrewed a panel and plugged in the drive. It worked. The door clicked open. Inside were cold, metallic corridors. Surveillance monitors. Clean floors. Empty beds. But one monitor caught her attention. It showed live feeds from 6 other nodes. They were still connected. Still active. She transmitted the data to Evelyn. We'll strike them simultaneously, Evelyn said from HQ. All of them. Lila copied the drives, replaced the panels, and left without a trace. But as she exited the building, she paused. Across the street stood a woman in a gray coat, staring at her. Older. Sharp. It was Catherine Vale. They locked eyes. Catherine raised one finger to her lips. Then disappeared into the alley. Back at base, Lila handed Evelyn the copied data. She was there, Lila whispered. Catherine. She saw me. Evelyn stared at the screen, where all 7 nodes were now mapped, vulnerable. Then she knows, Evelyn said, which means she'll either run. George stepped forward. Or she'll come to finish the job.